Breaking news. Rashida's pregnancy has been revealed, and the shocking twist is that the father may not be her husband, Kirk Frosts. Yes, you read correctly. The rumors began as a whisper, but they have now exploded into a full-blown scandal that is rocking the reality TV industry. If Yandys is the father of Rashida's child, fans are going crazy, and the internet is ablaze with accusations, heartbreak, and confusion. How could this happen? What does this mean for Rashida's marriage? Where does Yandy Smith, who has supported Yandys through it all, stand? The entertainment industry is in turmoil as rumors about Rashida's shocking pregnancy, which started as a whisper among a few close friends, have grown into a full-fledged scandal. Isn't just another celebrity rumor. This is the kind of scandal that could tear these families apart, and the fallout is already happening faster than anyone can keep up with the drama, the betrayal, the shattered trust. So grab some popcorn, because we're going to dive deep into the mess that's taking over social media. And trust us, you won't believe what happens next. The world is watching the drama unfold, and social media is going crazy. No one can seem to turn away as the news keeps making waves, but what's really shocking isn't just the pregnancy, it's the possibility that Yandys sees could be the father, not Rashida's husband, Kirk Frosts. Yes, you read correctly. How did we get here? Let's go back a little. For years, Rasheeda and Kirk Frosts seemed like the ideal couple, an iconic pair in the reality TV world. Their relationship had been put to the test on camera numerous times, with ups and downs and unwavering loyalty in the face of adversity. But behind closed doors, things were far from ideal in recent months. Fans couldn't believe what they were, hearing when they began to notice tension between the couple. Subtle hints were dropped in interviews, social media posts, and behind-the-scenes footage, leaving everyone wondering what was going on, why Rasheeda and Kirk had suddenly become cold, and what was causing that distance. However, the real bombshell came when rumors arose that Rasheeda was pregnant and that the father might not be Kirk Frosts, but rather Yandys, who had been a part of the love and hip-hop universe for a while. But his previous involvement with Rasheeda was frequently overshadowed by his deep commitment to the accusations against his partner, Yandy Smith, initially seemed implausible, but as the rumors gained traction, they were impossible to ignore. What happened next was even more scandalous: secret meetings, private conversations, and emotional exchanges between Rasheeda and Yandys. According to sources close to the matter, these meetings, while initially undocumented, served as the basis for the rumors that would soon rock the entertainment industry. What was going on between these two? Were they just friends as they claimed, or was there something more sinister underlying their interactions? Kirk Frosts, who once appeared to have it all together, was caught off guard by the news. Insiders close to the couple claimed that Kirk immediately confronted Rasheeda, demanding answers after learning about the rumors surrounding her pregnancy. Led to a heated argument that was reportedly filled with anger, betrayal, and emotional distress at the couple's home. Their dynamic showed Rasheeda and Yandys exchanging more private glances and more intimate body language than you'd expect from friends. Was reportedly a war zone at the time, with accusations circulating back and forth according to sources. Kirk couldn't believe what he was hearing, which was that not only was his marriage in doubt, but that the paternity of his unborn child was also being questioned. As the situation worsened, fans started doing what they do best: dissecting every social media post, video, and picture they could find. They were looking through old footage of Rasheeda and Yandys interacting at public events where they were spotted laughing too long or standing too close. What were these moments really about, were they? The next big revelation came when an anonymous source leaked messages between Rasheeda and Yandys that were full of affection and longing. These messages weren't just friendly exchanges. They were charged with an emotional intensity that seemed to go beyond the bounds of friendship. What had started out as a small rumor took on a life of its own, and people began to believe it. Fans were becoming impatient and frustrated, demanding answers, and just when things couldn't get any worse for the couple, the media got their hands on the story. The internet turned into a playground for conspiracy theories. Kirk Frosts decided that everything would change when the scandal spread like wildfire. He demanded a paternity test because the pressure was too great, and the truth had to be revealed. Was not just about rumors anymore. It was about the paternity of his unborn child. Kirk needed confirmation because he couldn't trust Rasheeda again if there was even the slightest doubt about the paternity. Was it really his child? Or had something inappropriate happened between Rasheeda and Yandys? He needed to know for sure. Meanwhile, Yandys was dealing with his own problems. He had been with Yandy Smith for years, and the last thing he wanted was to be caught in the middle of a scandal that could destroy his relationship with her. But as the rumors spread, Yandy grew increasingly devastated by the possibility of betrayal. She had been there for Yandys through thick and thin, helping him when things got tough. But now she was left to wonder if the rumors were true, or if it was all a huge misunderstanding. As the tension reached a boiling point, Yandy confronted Yandys C's. Did he come clean, or did he continue to deny everything? Fans were anxiously awaiting the next piece of the puzzle to fall into place, wondering if Yandys C's was the father, or was the media exaggerating everything? Kirk wasn't the only one seeking answers. Yandy was also going through heartbreak and trying to comprehend the seriousness of the accusations. Rasheeda was left wondering how it all went wrong, whether she could save her marriage to Kirk, or if it was too late, and what would happen to Yandys' relationship with Yandy if he was the father. The clock was ticking as the investigation went on, and the public demanded answers about what was actually happening between Rasheeda and Yandys. Was this a scandal of epic proportions, or was this the whole thing just a string of miscommunications and rumors? But keep an eye out, because the reality of the scandal hit harder than anyone could have imagined. The floodgates were open, and the drama was unfolding in front of us in real time, with Rasheeda, Kirk, Yandys, and Yandy having no way out of the chaos that was taking over their lives. The truth, no matter how ugly, was just around the corner. What followed was a series of shocking moments, emotional confrontations, and explosive revelations that left fans gasping. The rumors about Rasheeda's pregnancy started to pick up steam when the text exchanges between her and Yandys were leaked to several tabloids by anonymous sources, and the revelation sent shockwaves through the media. These messages weren't just friendly banter, rather, they were full of affection, flirtation, and an intimacy that was difficult to ignore. The public could no longer deny what seemed to be happening in front of their eyes, and fans immediately pored over these texts, carefully examining every word and punctuation mark in search of any proof that Yandys and Rasheeda had more than a friendship or professional relationship. Rasheeda's social media accounts had always been a place where fans followed her every move, but now they were inundated with hateful comments, accusations, and doubts. People began speculating about every interaction between Rasheeda and Yandys, questioning every photo, caption, and online appearance. As these theories swirled, more sources came forward sharing their versions of events, some of which claimed that Rasheeda and Yandys were actually the father, had been observed spending more time together than ever before, sneaking around to private events away from the public eye. Others, however, maintained that there was no physical relationship between the two, but that emotional boundaries had been crossed, a betrayal. Nevertheless, there was broad agreement that something had gone horribly wrong, and the last straw was when Kirk Frosts was faced with the truth. Kirk, who had been the protective husband for a long time, was now blindsided, according to sources. When Kirk first heard the rumors, he was in total denial that his wife, the woman he had built a life with, could be involved in such a scandal. It became impossible for him to ignore the explosive confrontation with accusations flying in all directions. Kirk reportedly demanded answers from Rasheeda, but overcome by emotion, she was unable to provide them. Her silence spoke volumes and only served to fuel Kirk's rage for the first time. Kirk's trust in Rasheeda was shattered. Was their love as solid as he had once believed, or had it all been built on lies? The argument quickly escalated and ended with both of them crying, leaving, "I don't know how we got here," Yandy said, her eyes welling with tears. "I thought we were building something beautiful, but now I don't know if we're even going to make it through this." As the arguments raged on, the producers scrambled to contain the fallout. It was becoming clear that the situation was spiraling out of control, and the carefully curated image of love and hip-hop was beginning to unravel. "We need to get this under control," one producer was overheard saying. "We can't let this split up the cast. We need them to be a family, not rivals, as the finale approaches." The growing hostility on set was clearly shaking young Jock, who was known for his sense of humor and upbeat outlook on life. "This is not what I signed up for," he said in frustration, despite the attempts to mediate the cast's divisions, which were only getting worse. We're supposed to be a team, a family, but it's like everyone's out for themselves now, and I just want to get through all of this without having to fight. Jock had always been the peacemaker on the show, but even he had his limits. As tensions mounted, he began to pull away from the drama, staying silent and avoiding the heated exchanges that had become commonplace. However, it wasn't just the cast that was affected. Fans who had once celebrated the ups and downs of their favorite stars were now expressing shock and disappointment. Social media exploded with reactions, with many calling for the show to be canceled altogether. "This is ridiculous," one fan tweeted. "I can't. I think that the drama that these individuals are causing is not what we agreed upon." Another admirer wrote, "This isn't reality anymore. It's just a bunch of people pretending to be something they're not." Other viewers were also astounded by the show's radical departure from its original concept. In a final attempt to save the show, the producers hired a mediator to try and settle. As the meeting progressed, it became evident that the wounds were too deep to be healed with a simple conversation. "I've had enough of this," Kirk snapped, interrupting the mediator. "We're not here to fix things. We're here to set the record straight." His defiant attitude only served to fuel the fire further. The mediator's job was to facilitate a group meeting where everyone would have a chance to air their grievances and hopefully find some common ground. "I don't care about the show anymore," one cast member said, adding to the conflict as the meeting went on. "It's just a paycheck at this point. We're all being played, and I'm sick of it." The other cast members, who had previously been united by their shared experiences, were now openly discussing the toll the show had taken on their lives, saying, "This show was supposed to be our ticket to something better," a different cast member acknowledged. "But we're all suffering because all we've had is drama." The show, which had once been a cultural phenomenon, was now on the verge of collapse due to deep cast fractures, and it was becoming clear that some members might not return for another season. The producers realized they were in a crisis at this point, and one producer admitted that something needed to change. The cast had to confront the fact that their futures were uncertain as the show's finale was just days away. Would they be able to resolve their differences and carry on with the love and hip-hop story, or was this the end of an era? The show's success and the relationships that had been so essential to it were at stake, and as the days went by, the emotional toll on the cast members became unavoidable. What had started out as a dramatic on-set dispute had now escalated into a full-blown personal crisis impacting all parties involved. The fallout from the explosive altercations was extensive, and nobody, not even the producers, could have predicted what would happen next. Kirk Frosts, the controversy's lightning rod, found himself at the center of the chaos. His earlier statements, which were full of anger and defiance, had resonated with many people, especially men. He had said this repeatedly as tensions between the two men reached new heights, but as the days went by, it became clear that Kirk's boastfulness was, "I don't know how much more I can take," Rasheeda confessed to a close friend as she paced back and forth in her dressing room. "Kirk is pushing everyone away, and I can't keep pretending like everything is okay," she said, her voice trembling, revealing the vulnerability that lay beneath her normally composed exterior as Rasheeda dealt with the fallout from her marriage. Behind the scenes, Rasheeda was also struggling to keep it all together, knowing deep down that he had crossed the line and that the fallout was far from over. One night, after a particularly stressful day of filming, Nenth and Yandy, who had always been a fan favorite and whose love story was one of the show's more heartfelt arcs, were having their own private reckoning. However, now that things had gotten to a boiling point, the normally composed DC was visibly agitated. His frustration had been building for months, and it seemed like the time had finally come for him to speak out. "I didn't sign up for this. Men. I came here to show the world our journey, not to be caught in this. We've been through worse, darling, but even Yandy, who had supported him through his darkest moments, was starting to doubt their future on the show. I can't keep pretending like everything is fine," she confessed to a close friend, "because Men C is done with this, and I don't blame him. This isn't the life we envisioned for our family. The never-ending cycle of drama, lies, and manipulations was all too much." Over the years, the cameras had recorded innumerable moments of unfiltered emotion, but nothing could have prepared the audience for what was about to happen. The conflict grew more intense every day, and nobody, not even the show's producers, could keep the drama under control. What had started out as a straightforward reality show had evolved into a high-stakes game where reputations, relationships, and futures were at stake. As the drama played out, the rest of the cast watched in shock as young Jock, known for his laid-back demeanor and "I never thought it would come to this," he stated in a disbelieving tone. "We're all supposed to be a family, but it feels like everyone's turning on each other." He was shocked by the degree of hostility that had taken over the set. Even though Jock had always been the group's unifying factor, he realized that things had gotten out of hand. The producers, who had taken great satisfaction in crafting the drama that fans wanted, were now having difficulty regaining control. "We can't keep pushing these people to their breaking point," one producer remarked. "We need to find a way to fix the rifts, or this show is going to fail," he said to a group of coworkers. The producers were in a difficult situation because, although the drama was what had made Love and Hip Hop so popular, the personal toll it was taking on the cast was indisputable. The question now was whether the show could go on, or if it was too late to undo the harm that had been done. Despite efforts to mediate the situation, the cast members who had once been bound together by their shared experiences were now split by a deep-seated animosity that no one seemed to be able to end. "This isn't anymore," one cast member admitted to a crew member during a break. "We're all just going through the motions, but nobody really cares about each other anymore." The once close-knit group had been broken, and the cracks were only getting wider every day as tensions increased. Kirk's behavior became even more erratic, and his disobedience toward men had only served to stoke the conflict. Shouted at one point, his face red with rage, "I'm not backing down from anyone, not even Menzies." His words reverberated throughout the set, causing a wave of unease among the cast and crew. It was evident that Kirk wasn't just angry, he was unraveling, and no one knew how to stop it. Meanwhile, Rasheeda was faced with a difficult choice. Should she stay by her husband, or should she leave? She had no clear answers, so she said quietly, "I don't know what's going to happen next, but I can't keep living like I need peace. I don't know what's worse," she said to herself while sitting by herself in her dressing room. Her emotional turmoil was apparent, and it seemed like no one could provide her with the reassurance she sorely needed. Yandy was also at a crossroads. She had always been Mendes's pillar of support, but even she was starting to wonder how much longer they could continue down this path. It was obvious that the decision she had to make would have a long-term impact on her marriage, career, and future. The cast members weren't the only ones experiencing stress. Viewers who had been watching the show for years were starting to voice their concerns on social media. One fan wrote, "This is too much," while another fan said, "They're tearing each other apart for a paycheck, and it's sad to watch." Others were quick to complain about how the show had changed over the years, saying, This. As the fun got closer, the producers frantically tried to figure out how to salvage the situation. Would they be able to mend the broken relationships between the cast members, or was this the end of the line for Love and Hip Hop? The uncertainty hung in the air, and no one knew what the future held for the show or its stars. As the cast members prepared for the final filming day, the tension was palpable. "Isn't that the Love and Hip Hop I used to watch?" another fan commented. "It's just a mess now." As the last day of filming drew near, tension on set reached an all-time high. The once close-knit group of Love and Hip Hop cast members was now a fractured family, each member battling emotions and conflicting loyalties. It was unclear whether the cast would be able to come together one last time to make it through the finale, or if the fractures in their relationships would be too deep to overcome the show's fate and the cast's future. Kirk Frosts, who had been at the center of much of the chaos, appeared to be on the verge of a meltdown. His normally calm demeanor had been replaced with an air of volatility with each passing hour. His outbursts became more frequent, his temper shorter, and his defiance toward the producers and cast members more intense. "This whole situation is a joke," Kirk had muttered during one of his many heated conversations with crew members. "They want to paint me as the villain, but I'm just speaking the truth." He was one of the most unpredictable characters on the show, but it seemed like his own emotions were going out of control now. Rasheeda, on the other hand, had reached a breaking point of her own. The emotional strain of the ongoing drama had taken a toll on her. His words, though confident, were laced with frustration and fear. It was evident to those around him that Kirk was struggling, and that his internal battle had reached its boiling point. Despite his bravado, the cracks in his armor were widening, and it was impossible to predict how far he would go before completely breaking down. The listener nodded in understanding. "I get it, Rasheeda, but you've always been the strong one. You've got this." But even Yandy wasn't sure how much longer Rasheeda could handle the weight of being caught in the middle of her husband's implosion, while also dealing with the drama of the situation. And the last day of shooting loomed over her like a dark cloud. "I don't know if I can do this anymore," she confessed to Yandy one evening, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm losing it." The show was taking a toll, and it was evident that she was torn between her devotion to Kirk and her own health. Meanwhile, NDCs, who had been largely silent during the drama's peak, were engulfed in an emotional tornado. His annoyance with the situation had been building for a while, but as the last day of filming drew near, it was getting more difficult to control it. "I can't keep acting like Yandy, who had always stood by men through thick and thin, couldn't help but agree. "I hear you, babe, but let's just make it through the finale and then we'll figure things out." "Everything's fine," he told Yandy in a rare moment of vulnerability. "But this is too much. I'm done with all this chaos. We didn't come here for this. I came here to focus on my family and my future, not to be dragged into this mess." As the E-Twari cast prepared for what was supposed to be a celebratory final day, the atmosphere on set was anything but festive. The producers, who had worked tirelessly to keep the drama flowing throughout the season, now faced a much larger challenge. How to handle a situation that had escalated far beyond their control. The damage had already been done. Their time on the show had been filled with drama, but now that the final moments of shooting were upon them, it was evident that their relationship with the show and perhaps with each other might never be the same again. "This is bigger than just reality TV. This is real-life fallout, and we can't predict how it's going to play out," one producer said to another, her voice tinged with concern. The tension in the once tightly controlled set was now a pressure cooker, with every interaction full of tension. The crew, accustomed to the constant ebb and flow of reality show drama, was now walking on eggshells, and nobody knew if the final day would arrive. As they got ready for the final shoot, Yandy, always the joker and peacemaker, tried to lighten the mood, but even his trademark sense of humor couldn't break through the obvious tension. "Man, this is getting out of hand," he said to a fellow cast member. "I don't know what's going to happen, but I hope we make it through this without another fight. My heart can't take much more of this." He asked if the shooting would end in a dramatic resolution, or if it would be the starting point for even greater fallout. "I'm done pretending," he shouted, his voice echoing through the set. "This is all a game, and I'm not playing anymore." The situation only served to highlight the deep rift that had formed among the cast as the cameras rolled and the cast gathered for the season's final scene. The tension in the air was thick, and the producers held their breath hoping for a smooth wrap-up. But what they didn't anticipate was the eruption that followed. Kirk, who had been unusually quiet throughout the day, suddenly snapped. Rasheeda, who was clearly shaken by his outburst, tried to stop Kirk from doing this. "This isn't the time for this," she begged, but her voice wavered with emotion. "Please, don't do this now. Let's just finish this and go home." His words were charged with anger, but underneath it all was an unmistakable sense of hurt. Kirk had spent years trying to navigate the pressures of fame, but it seemed that the weight of it all had finally broken him. The cameras were rolling, recording every moment, but what they missed was the brokenness in Kirk's eyes. The man who had been so confident just days before now seemed like a shell of his former self. Kirk said, "But I've had enough." He turned toward the crew and said, "You want drama? I'll give you drama, but don't expect me to be anyone's puppet anymore." The room fell silent. The tension was so intense that it was like a knife. Mendez, who had been watching the scene from a distance, stepped forward and said, "Kirk, man, I get it," in a surprisingly composed voice. "But this isn't the way to handle it. We're all dealing with our own stuff. You don't have to do this alone." However, Kirk refused to back down in a final act of defiance, saying, "I'm done with all of you," which he spat before storming off set. "I don't need any of you for this show." The final day of filming ended in chaos, and the producers abruptly stopped the cameras, unsure of how to save the day. The cast, who had once been a family bound together by their common experiences, was now split, and the future of hip-hop and love appeared more uncertain than ever as they left the set, their faces displaying a mixture of sadness, anger, and exhaustion. The show that had made them famous was now a blur of the past, and the bonds that had been formed on That's Love and hip-hop's most chaotic moment. It was left in ruins, and nobody knew what the future held, but one thing was certain. The cast would never be the same. The day of